Hi, and welcome to Extra Serving, a podcast by Nation's Restaurant News. I'm your host, Holly Petre. Today we're going to be talking about what else? Earnings season. As Alicia Kelso so eloquently put it in a piece she wrote last week, earnings season is like Christmas for the industry, a time to figure out how certain campaigns of LTOs worked for the major restaurant companies. This week, we saw several big change reports, like Starbucks, Papa John's, Wingstop, and Yum Brands, to name a few standouts. What are the themes we've noticed, and what do these results mean? Also, we're going to be talking about MrBeast Burgers. The crown jewel of the virtual restaurant industry has had some consistency problems that have been documented on social media. In lieu of these claims, MrBeast himself wants to divest from the company and is taking action to have his name removed from the concept. Two mixed results. Is this the death knell for the virtual restaurant industry? Who knows? Now it's time to introduce my lovely co-hosts.
I'm Leigh Zinsmeister, Managing Editor at Nation's Restaurant News.
I'm Joanna Fantozzi, Senior Editor at Nation's Restaurant News.
Stratus Foods is the industry partner you can depend on when you're looking for the very best in fats and oils. Our team of expert researchers, developers, and innovators have helped countless businesses just like yours bring their most delicious menus to life. With products that are reliable, sustainable, and ready to meet any challenge, you can fry, bake, saute, and grill with confidence. Stratus Foods, we've got you covered. Well, welcome, Joanna. It's so nice to have you on the pod again.
Yes, nice to be here.
It's always fun when it's a girls-only pod. Don't tell Sam. He won't listen to this, but he'll never know.
Yeah, we should think about changing the name temporarily. Whenever it's a women's-only pod, we should change the name to something.
The Girls' Room. Did you guys ever watch The Amanda Show?
Yeah, I was just thinking The Girls' Room from The Amanda Show.
Thank God
Showing our millennial.
I know, we're
showing our millennial age.
Whoops.
Okay. Whoopsies. So somebody else, I believe MrBeast is a millennial as well, so we can start with that because I feel like he's kind of in our orbit. Though he does appeal to Gen Alpha, which Alicia's son is a huge MrBeast fan. But we've been seeing some mixed results on his virtual brand. That the quality's bad, that the burger is inedible. I mean, there are some really nasty things that they're saying about this brand, and I feel like maybe they're taking it too far, but it may just be really disgusting. I have no idea. I have not tried it. So MrBeast wants to leave his contract with Virtual Dining Concepts because he doesn't want his name on something that he thinks is making him look bad. And he feels like he's lost a lot of recognition in the industry because of this brand that he started that grew exponentially, which, you know, Joanna, you talked about this, that some of the bags that came out from the company were in 7-Eleven bags and the food wasn't labeled. And so they had a consistency problem because, you know, if you're cooking the back of a 7-Eleven, it's going to be a lot different than if you're cooking in a restaurant. And so I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this in terms of the virtual restaurant industry, because this was the darling. This was the brand that everybody thought was going to be it. And now it's sort of crumbling.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I love the transition. I believe you're right. I believe MrBeast is a millennial, aka Jimmy Donaldson. So we know that there has been a shakeup in the virtual restaurant industry for a long time. We know that because we're always talking, thinking about, and at least for me, writing about this stuff all the time. Nextbite being, having all sorts of issues and then being acquired by their competitor after many layoffs. And we've seen this kind of coming for a long time. But now I think the difference for me with this MrBeast Burger lawsuit is that this is pretty public facing, because MrBeast is a well-known person, not only in the virtual restaurant industry, but just as he's one of the top YouTubers. A lot of people know who he is. And so I think it really is coming out that there are issues with the virtual restaurant business model. And really what it is that it's hard to get consistency. And that's something that I spoke about when I did a deep dive into Nextbite. It's really hard to get food quality consistency because it can come from anywhere, including apparently a 7-Eleven. And that is something that I think customers expect, especially if you have, like, let's say a 10 to 12-year-old who really likes watching MrBeast and wants to order the burger, and then it comes in, it's not labeled in a bag in its packaging, which that's definitely a no-no for ghost kitchens because that's the only marketing opportunity you really have. So you have to put it in labeled packaging, as that's what the marketing is. And, let's say you have the burger and it's just not very good. Maybe, like you said, maybe some of these reviews went over the top, but I given what we know about issues that virtual restaurants have in general, and the reviews that we've seen on Mr. Beast Burger, I'm not surprised that they are suing Virtual Dining Concept to get out of their to get out of their contract and to cease production of Mr. Beast Burger.
It's so interesting to me because, Holly, I think you said, is this the death knell in virtual restaurants? And it's funny because I feel like we used the exact same phrase a month ago when we were talking about Next Bite. And I was not convinced at the time. I was like, I thought it was an anomaly. I thought there was still so much good stuff ahead for virtual brands. And that might still be the case. But I'm becoming more and more convinced that, oh, maybe this whole thing is built on shaky ground, and virtual restaurants as a whole need to have some kind of reckoning. Because I still think there could. I don't know why I'm such an optimist on this subject, because it's not my MO usually with a lot of things, but I think there's so much potential here. But I think that between Next Bite and now VDC, Mr. Beast, there's a lot to figure out here. How do we serve quality food? How do we serve it, with our own materials, like packaging, marketing? There are just a lot of holes here. And now that we're in this phase where consumers have more options, we can leave our houses, we can go dine in restaurants. People have more choices. And so it's starting to show some of the flaws in all of this. So it's kind of interesting to watch. It's also, I feel like, facilitating so much more drama than other things in the industry right now. It's not just that these things are happening, but it's oh, we're suing and taking over other companies and all of that. So it's just been fascinating to watch.
Yeah. Speaking of drama, so I actually just updated my my Mr. Beast story, with a comment from Virtual Dining Concepts, which I noted yesterday is unusual, because usually when there's litigation going on, the company that is being sued will say, we cannot comment on pending litigation. So either they didn't listen to their lawyers or don't care. But I just thought this was a pretty dramatic statement. They said, when VDC refused to accede to his bullying tactics to give up more of the company to them, he filed this ill-advised and meritless lawsuit seeking to undermine the brand. I know that I had a little bit of a dramatic voice there, but it is definitely drama-filled for sure. But I think that I am still not necessarily optimistic about the future of virtual brands, but I do think that you can't lump them all in one category. And I think that what companies are realizing, and it's not a shortcut. It's not a shortcut to be like, aha, we can quickly, easily, and for much less money open up these virtual restaurant brands, and then it's not a get rich quick scheme, is what I think people are realizing. And you have to have consistency. You have to have quality of food. You have to have training to be able to train these ghost kitchens to be able to cook your food right. And you have to have marketing and packaging. And that it's not a shortcut. And so I think that virtual brands can survive, but they can't do it under these terms.
Well, and I also think that, when you think about Mr. Beast's expansion and how quickly they grew, it's the same as a normal restaurant. If you're going to grow that quickly, you need to have everything in order. I think the only place we've ever seen that's grown that quickly successfully is Crumble Cookies, because they have an easy product to make. It's very consistent. And I've heard that it's consistent across their brand because they get all these great reviews, and some of our team have tried them and love them. I haven't yet to try them, but I will. But that's the only brand I could think of that's done it successfully. Otherwise, when you grow too quickly, you're not going to have the same quality control across them. You're not going to be able to have the same staffing, like Joanna was saying. You won't be able to train everyone. And that's kind of what Mr. Beast did, except for the virtual restaurant industry, which is not that dissimilar from the regular restaurant industry. And I think that that's something that they weren't thinking about as they were doing this. They were just thinking, it works. Let's keep going. We have a product that works. We have a name recognition. We have a great brand. Let's just keep going. And you have to remember that virtual restaurants are still a restaurant. So they still have to deal with the same hardships that restaurants have to deal with. So I think that's really their main issue. But I'm curious to see how this is going to shake out, because I think that the best restaurant brands we've seen that have done ghost kitchens are out of their own kitchens, taking up time. I think about Doghouse as a great example. They started their badass burritos in a time when they were open, not that like in time when they was really slow at the restaurant. So they deliver them from in the middle of the night. And so you think of those ones, but then we also have the example of casual dining took away their virtual brands. So there's always a caveat to each thing in this industry. And we don't know how the restaurant industry is going to really treat virtual restaurants moving forward. I feel like it's kind of a mixed bag.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the crowning examples of a virtual restaurant done well was It's Just Wings from Brinker. And it's because they knew restaurants. Like, they didn't have a flashy celebrity face on it, but they know how to make good quality food. They had some idea of how to serve it off premises. They knew how to pick a food that travels well. I mean, wings, boom, done. And they had smashing success when they needed it. So I think that really, yeah, what we've learned from this is that it's the restaurant experience that serves you well in this virtual. And I mean, you know, to Holly's point, some casual dining companies are winding down their virtual brands. Some I'm seeing that limited service brands are still launching virtual restaurants. So maybe that's where the industry is headed. These like well-known, I mean, Salad Works just launched something like 7 virtual brands. Wiener Schnitzel is opening ghost kitchens. So maybe that's where this is going. And you just need to know how to run a good restaurant, I think, to make this work, especially in this current environment.
Well, and Chick-fil-A had their
I'm
own.
actually thinking of.
You go ahead, Joanna.
Oh, I was just going to say that another example that I could think of that tune in to NRN.com because I might be doing a story on this is WowWorks just came out with an interesting new model for new ghost kitchens where they have I believe what it is they made a list of 6 shared ingredients that different concepts can borrow. So they're using the same ingredients, so they're cutting their food costs. But at the same time, I do feel like, you know, WowWorks is an example of a company that they just really are investing a lot still in virtual brands, ghost kitchens. And I think what this shows is that you really need to know what you're doing. I mean, yes, the food people know food. That sounds obvious, but it's not necessarily that celebrities and these companies that are slapping celebrities' faces on virtual brands, they might not know food. And so my prediction is that virtual restaurants are going to become more of a niche industry. They're not going to go away completely, but to do it well, you have to do it right. I'm saying a lot of things that sound very obvious. I'm not being very profound.
No, and yet we're seeing all these companies crumble because they're not doing it that way. So I mean, I think some people need to hear this, Joanna.
Well, one brand that is doing it right is Chick-fil-A. I mean, they have this huge brand recognition. They started this virtual concept as Little Blue Menu. It was only available in Nashville. And then they grew it to a food truck, and now it's a food truck that's traveling the country. So they were able to really capitalize on that brand, and they got a lot of people ordering things from them. It was a different menu based on the first Chick-fil-A, which was called Dwarf House. And so they built all this stuff, and I think that they did it really well. And that's because they had the restaurant background, but they also had the name recognition. So it was kind of combining what a famous person could do and what a virtual brand can do and putting it all together. So I think that that's kind of the recipe of success that I think we see in the industry. And I think a lot of us wouldn't have thought, oh, Chick-fil-A's in the virtual restaurant space, but they are, and they're doing really well. So I think they've expanded the test to multiple cities as well, but I might be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure I saw that. But this food truck is going around, but Chick-fil-A also has new units that they're testing, like walk-up windows, and that we talked about last week. So I think that they are innovating a lot, more than their competitors. I think Chick-fil-A is really innovating a lot. So it's an interesting thing to put this in the virtual brand space as well. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what Chick-fil-A is doing. I feel like they are really innovating a lot. Well, they don't report, so we can't talk about them this week. But we can talk about the other brands that reported this week. To name a few, Starbucks, Papa John's. Papa John's reported this morning, Joanna, so probably fresh in your brain. Yum Brands reported. Sweetgreen reported after we finished recording the other week. Some casual dining brands. So what do you guys think that we're going to see from this? What have we seen from earnings this week? And what did you expect going into it? I mean, this is sort of the normal quarter. It lapped the normal quarter last year. The year prior, our first quarter was a real downer. So we saw huge sales in the first quarter of this year, huge same-store sales increases. last year, the second quarter was normal, was quote unquote normal. We didn't have we had inflation, but we didn't have a lot of the issues with like having to wear masks or having to be inside. So I'm curious to see what you guys learned from this quarter so far and what you expected to hear.
Yeah, our colleague Alicia Kelso, who's taking a well-deserved vacation right now, pointed out before she left that something she's hearing a lot on these earnings calls is about commodities. And I hate to say it, but she's right. We're back to talking about, I feel like I'm just like on repeat. You could like take whatever I said 2 years ago and just like drop it in right here and it would still make sense. Oh my God, the freaking inflation, the supply chain, like it never ends. So we've got, Texas Roadhouse talking about beef and labor. Over at Wingstop, wing prices are up. We had a whole report on that before they even reported. We were talking about the price of wings these days, which makes me a little nervous because, the price of chicken tends to be where everything else goes after that. It was the first thing to spike. It was the first thing to drop. But what I'll say is that I think that having gone through this over the last couple of years has prepared restaurants well. They have plans and backups in place, and it's not impacting their bottom line as much as it was initially. We're still seeing across the board like relative year-over-year success over a relatively normal quarter, but that's still, a year ago, consumers were worried about inflation. They were paying a lot for gas. So it's interesting to watch, restaurants are generally doing well, but they've got their eye on these commodities prices that are getting a little sketchy.
Yeah, and I think that, well, first of all, I think that supply chain, it kind of is a roller coaster. It goes up and down. But I think that these commodity costs and inflation in general is definitely causing issues in more ways than one. Something interesting that that Papa John's talked about this morning is their issues with struggling franchisees, and the reason franchisees are struggling is because throughout the quarter, due to inflation, they kept raising prices, and that eventually turned off customers and affected traffic. And so their transactions were way down in franchisee stores specifically, and that's because they kept raising prices. But so it's always important, I guess, to balance the business needs with the needs of the customer, and that's hard to do.
Well, we saw prices of things go down again. Like we had wings were exorbitantly priced and then they went down. And we saw beef and we saw all these different bread containers. Everything had a huge supply chain issue last year and the year before. But when we saw restaurants take price, they haven't taken it back down. They have not, in spite of everything, they have not taken their prices back down to where they were before the supply chain crisis. And I think that's super interesting to note because they're talking about, things still increasing prices, but they came back down. This is probably the level they were at a year ago. Chicken wings are probably at the price they were at a year ago. So they should theoretically be able to pay for it because they've already increased pricing. They've already done that. Like they have brought up the menu prices and they haven't said they're bringing them back down. So I think that that's something to note because when we're counting these things, it's that, they still have that extra cash coming in even when before all the commodities were the same price. This has just started. The chicken wing and the beef hasn't been around for 6 months. It's just like the past few weeks. And so it's interesting to kind of bring that note in and say, this isn't exactly going to be hard for them. They're already getting this quote unquote extra money.
Yeah. And Joanna's right that these things ebb and flow anyway. And this is just like a consequence of living in an economy. But, I think everybody's like still like on edge. It's like nobody's taken a breath since the last time we went through this sort of inflation supply chain crisis. But you're right too, Holly. Like a couple weeks ago, a local restaurant here in New York dropped their menu prices, and it was the subject line of a New York Times newsletter. Like that's how big a deal it was that this one local restaurant chain dropped their menu prices. And there was this whole feature article about like how they did it and why they did it. That just made me laugh because it's a consumer newsletter, but I'm like, this is just like the kind of stuff that fascinates me.
Wow.
But But yeah, the chains haven't really made any big moves in that direction. And we talked about it last week, so we don't need to get back into it. But Chipotle's talking about raising their menu prices again, and just continuing to go in that direction. And it's just like a never ending cycle, because then you got to pay people more so they can buy food. And we know how this story goes. But yeah, it's interesting to be back in that kind of loop when I feel like we've all just barely recovered from 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like what I've been seeing. Oh, sorry, Holly, go ahead.
No, you go, Joanna. You're much more interesting than I am.
Oh, stop. Something I was going to say is I feel like the trend that I've been seeing thus far this quarter, we still have some earnings to go, is sluggish sales. I've seen that kind of in Papa John's and Starbucks, but exciting menu innovation. And I feel like we've seen that exciting menu innovation and exciting digital marketing innovation. And that doesn't necessarily translate to improved revenues and whatnot, but I do think that it's a sign that things are even though we're still struggling again with inflation and whatnot and the supply chain. I think that things aren't quite as dire maybe as they were a year or two ago.
I mean, I went to Wingstop the other night, and wings are still 70 cents. So they still are running specials. I think what people are doing a lot more is running special deals to make you think that you're getting a deal, which is probably just the price it was before they started taking pricing. Like it's almost like they're tricking you, and we know that we're being tricked, but customers don't know. They think, oh my God, this is a great deal, versus like, oh my God, this is what I paid a year ago. So that's something interesting to think about too, that I'm kind of going over in my head. Like when I see these deals, I'm like, oh, that's the price that it would have been last year, but you're giving me a deal on it. So I don't know. That's where my head went.
There's definitely a lot more space for marketing innovation right now, and menu innovation. To Joanna's point, it's like, oh, we can like breathe enough at least that we can figure out some other things to do where it's not like all hands on deck over here with operations. But yeah, for sure, like discounting, loyalty programs. We're starting to see a lot of happy hours, which is interesting from a business perspective. So that kind of stuff is definitely prominent right now.
Yeah, well, usually when you see a lot of these deals, it signals that they're worried about customer behavior and worried that people aren't spending as much.
Yeah, they want you in the restaurant, and if the way to get you in is to give you $2 off a drink from 3 to 7, then that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, which is interesting that we're calling it happy hour and not adjusting menu prices per the time of day. So I think that's I mean, it's the same thing, but you're posing it in a different, like Noodles and Company tried this. I know Just Salad does this, where like a certain time of the day you can get a smoothie for $8 versus $10, and you can get a pasta for $7 at 3:00, but then it's $10 at 6:00. Like they do those all the time, but I think labeling it happy hour makes people think that it's more fun. Like there's a connotation for happy hour that you kind of think, oh, this is going to be fun. I'm getting a really good deal. I think that's a big thing. Like it could be $1 off, but somebody's like, that's a really good deal. It's happy hour. It's the happiest time. I'm going to get something. Look at this menu. It's so cheap. And you're just like, it's $1 off from the regular menu. But, it's kind of on the DL. And I think that that's something that I'm really enjoying now, is that I love happy hours. I don't care if it's just $1 off. I'll still go. Love dollar oysters. That's my favorite. They don't sell them at any of the restaurants we're talking about, but I do love dollar oysters. So I just thought I'd put that out there.
Noted.
Yeah, these marketing strategies really work, I think. And I think that in terms of innovation, marketing, and menu innovation, usually we're talking about Taco Bell specifically, but I think that other brands are starting to catch up. Obviously, Taco Bell is kind of leading the way this past quarter in terms of menu and marketing innovation. But something fun that, for example, Starbucks did was, I can't believe they've never had frozen refreshers before, but they haven't. So they introduced frozen lemonade refreshers, and I feel like that's been really popular. And so I just think there's a lot of interesting, exciting things out there, to both deals and new menu items to get people coming in.
Well, menu items are key. And I feel like we talked about this for a while, Joanna, that, Papa John's was doing all of this menu innovation and Domino's wasn't. And that was how Domino's was kind of going below and Papa John's was rising in its star. And so I think that menu innovation is a sign that a brand not only is doing well, but it's a sign that they are thinking and being creative and that they're planning for the future. So when you see extra menu innovation, like Taco Bell's a great example, they do menu innovation constantly, but they're using the same SKUs. So they are creating these new items, but they're not introducing anything new to their back of house, which is something that Chipotle also did when they partnered with those influencers to get the quesadillas, and then they just didn't have to add anything to their SKUs. So it's the marketing that people are doing is a lot on social media. It's a lot via customers, their own videos that they're making. Like McDonald's jumped in on the Grimace Shake. We saw those results last week that the Grimace Shake did gangbusters. It really helped them with their traffic. And then KFC, we saw this quarter was really it really was like improved by their nuggets that sold like 100 million in the first week or two or something. So we've seen that these menu innovations are really helping. Taco Bell last quarter or 2 quarters ago saw the Mexican pizza really increase their traffic, increase their same-store sales. So we're seeing that if you partner with somebody or if you have menu innovation, whether it's through social media or your own content, it's still helping you. But it seems like menu innovation is the key for this versus like, Domino's was talking a lot about its own delivery, which is a whole other thing now. But they haven't really been innovating because they're focused on their delivery right now. It seems like that's where their core market is they're focusing on delivery versus focusing on the picture as a whole. But like, I don't know. That's just my thoughts on this.
And you should also lean into nostalgia, hence the success of the Grimace Shake.
And the Mexican pizza and the enchilada and all those things that Taco Bell is doing that they make customers click on which they vote for on different items. And it's clever. It's very clever. And it seems to be working.
Oh yeah, Taco Bell is king of this for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if McDonald's kind of took notes, with the success of Taco Bell, bringing back old menu items, having people vote on them, and just thinking, hey, people love the McDonald's of the 80s and 90s. Let's capitalize on that.
Well, that's like the introduction of the McRib every few years. They know people love the McRib. They only introduce it for a certain amount of time every few years because the marketing around it is so good. Everybody loves the McRib. And they take it off the menu so that you still want to crave it. So it's not, they don't want to keep it on there at all times. They want to introduce it when they need the extra boost to traffic. And then they take it away. And then you have to hope and wish that it's going to come out again and look for when it's going to come out again. So I think that that's a great strategy too. Find something people love, take it off, take it back, take it off, take it back. And you're driving up brand awareness. You're driving up desire for the object. So it sells out right away. I mean, the McRib sells out right away. So I think that that's something that is a little different for McDonald's and Taco Bell in terms of McDonald's isn't necessarily leaning into nostalgia. They're trying to get Gen Z with their new music collaborations that also don't use any new SKUs, which is really what we talked about last week. That was the moral of the story is don't create something that needs new SKUs because it's going to be easier. That's that's true for the virtual restaurant industry as well. If you're operating another virtual brand out of your kitchen, try to use the same SKUs, just put them in a different order. And then it's easier for you to operate as a virtual restaurant or as a regular restaurant because you're using all the same ingredients. You don't have any that it's like, oh, I make these tortillas, but I'm a salad company. So I have to get all the stuff for tortillas to make at night, but then I have all the salad stuff during the day. Like use the same things. And that's what Alicia talked a lot about in her piece too. So, but she also wrote about local marketing this week, which Chipotle was talking a lot about in their earnings call and has talked about for a little while. They're shifting their strategy to local marketing. So getting it a lot more specific for each market. And I mean, Chipotle has a name presence everywhere. So I think local marketing is great. It's a lot of gift certificates, which is good for the economy. It's a lot of those kind of things. All right. So let's talk about technology. Joanna, this is your area of expertise. So I'd love to hear from you kind of what is happening in ChatGPT and AI when it comes to restaurants.
What's something that restaurants aren't quite investing in yet is AI. Hold on. I tried it. It didn't really work. I tried the transition.
It's hard.
See if you can drop that in somewhere, Holly, where it makes sense.
So something that I wrote about in this month's Tech Tracker, check it out on NRN.com, is if the restaurant industry is ready for AI. And by that, I mean the type of AI that is known as generative AI, i.e. ChatGPT, OpenAI, the AI that can quote unquote think for itself. And I had the opportunity to actually try out a generative AI technology. So that was kind of fun. And basically, I got the opportunity with Resto GPT, which is a brand new tech company that they basically allow you to create a custom online ordering portal. And I was able to test drive that by inputting I made up a restaurant name. I linked to a restaurant that that's one of my childhood restaurants from my hometown, and kind of inputted a couple of other bits of information, and then it basically creates this fully functioning online ordering system. And it was definitely fun to customize. They created in a couple of hours. However, the most notable thing here is that it is imperfect, because the menu images that it automatically generated through AI really did not match. They were kind of funny. I should have taken screenshots, but I didn't. I could actually probably go back and look at that. However, you cannot see a podcast, so they wouldn't help anyway.
We have a video version.
That's true, but the was it the chopped salad looked like some like weird mixture of bruschetta and wheat thins and cereal. I don't know. It was weird. I keep changing the what I think the description is. And they had a fork in the picture that had 6 prongs. And anyway, so I guess what I'm kind of learning is that there are 2 functions really. There are 2 lanes right now for generative AI. Restaurants aren't using them quite so much. They're more dabbling with them. So the first lane, I would say, is kind of using it as almost a fun gimmick. So another thing that I wrote about is Velvet Taco. And they're one of several restaurants that are trying to get a recipe out of ChatGPT and kind of utilizing that recipe. It becomes like a fun marketing gimmick. They created a surf and turf taco through ChatGPT, which actually sounds really good. And the other thing is the AI technology that is supposed to help you, write social media posts, create menu images, even create an online ordering platform. And that's kind of what I think is still in the work, still in beta testing, and isn't as perfect as we would like it to be yet. But given the fact that restaurants are now worrying about supply chain, worrying about inflation, wage inflation as well, I think that maybe a lot of restaurant operators are probably not super focused yet on AI. They have a lot of other problems to deal with.
I bet they're thinking a lot about robots at this point because of the labor challenges. We saw Sweetgreen unveil its infinite kitchen for real, like where it's not just an idea, it's actually legit. It's on premises. But it's off premises. It's on premises, but it's off premises. It's a building, but it's all off premises.
Leanne's making a face.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. I get that face a lot. So there's something to be said about leaning into the newness of robots and ChatGPT and AI, knowing that they're imperfect, knowing that you'd be one of the first ones. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago. Sweetgreen had this infinite kitchen before anybody else has. Chipotle is working on an automated make line. That's, I think, where people are going to start going first because it saves on labor. You invest once and then it saves on labor in the future, allowing your current employees to do things that are more specialized, and you can maybe pay them more because you're taking some of that money and putting it into the services that you need, like making guacamole. Like nobody wants to cut all those avocados, but machine does it. It's perfect. But I think that when it comes to ChatGPT and generative AI, I think people are almost a little scared because we've seen some. Remember that ChatGPT? I don't know if you guys saw the story, but there's a ChatGPT or AI, generative AI, where they gave it a bunch of math problems. And when it first came out, it was like 99% correct. And now it's way below 99%. That like we're testing these robots and we're like trying to push them as far as they can go. And I don't think the technology is ready for us to push them as far as as customers want to go. But there's interesting use cases for it. Joanna, you were talking about the Velvet Taco. We've seen that a bunch. This is not the first time we've seen a restaurant use ChatGPT to think of a new item, but I don't think that's going to be the real use case for it. I think that the real use case is going to be exactly like you said,
Yep.
for marketing, for social media posts, for automating back of house stuff. Like, hey, you're out of this item. Like you're going to be out of this item in 2 weeks based on your current sales. I'll order it for you in 2 weeks. Here's the exact quantity that you're going to need based on your sales, versus having a human do that. Because first of all, nobody wants to do that. That's for sure. But I think that's going to be the real use case for generative AI and ChatGPT, is more in the back of house.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All of these conversations that we've had about AI, and I feel like, that's definitely the case. I I was gonna say, like, you've learned, but then I feel like that's condescending. So
No, I've learned from you, Joanna.
I didn't want to say, because I feel like that's a little condescending. But
no,
anyway,
I've learned from you. You're my teacher.
no, but I definitely agree. I think that for now, the ChatGPT tacos, the ChatGPT made menu items, I think that those are just kind of more fun. And just like, previously last year, we talked all about the metaverse, and that was kind of more fun. And whereas I think in the future, as this technology becomes less expensive, because right now a lot of the back of house automation that can, that can post your social media posts and let you know when you're running out of chicken. I think that a lot of it's imperfect, right? The technology is imperfect right now, and it's not really affordable for a lot of restaurants. So I think there's kind of a long runway ahead, but I think in 5 years, this will be something that a lot of restaurants are using.
It definitely makes me think of like 20 years ago when search engines were brand new, and you would like, even like pre-Google, like ask Jeeves, and you would ask Jeeves something and he would say something like totally off the wall, and it's like, you're so close so much of the time, and then you're like completely missed the mark. That's like how I feel about ChatGPT right now, is like, I don't really trust you yet, but I feel like in another 5 to 10 years, I'll be like, oh, this is just like a tool. Like, I can't imagine doing anything without Google. And that's like, I think the direction that we're going with this, but I am not there yet.
I don't think any of us are. I think what we've learned is that it's imperfect. Just like Joanna was saying, it's not ready yet for the mass public, because it hasn't worked out the kinks. Like, you think about electric cars. People were all like, electric cars are going to be the future. Uber talked about the fact that they're only letting electric cars go on their fleet in a few years. But, not everybody has an electric car because they're more expensive now. And so as they become more accessible, more people will be driving them because it works better. It's like a better car. And same thing with ChatGPT and generative AI. They start out really expensive, and then they'll come down to the level where everybody can afford it, and then it's going to be synonymous, just like you were saying, Leanne. It's just, that's it. We don't know anything better. So I'm curious to watch as restaurants take on the tools and see how it actually impacts their labor, and see if they're able to pay more because their employees have less of the tedious work to do, and see if maybe that raises wages. I mean, Bernie Sanders introduced a bill for $17 an hour minimum wage. So that could be an interesting thing to watch in terms of what exactly is going to happen with minimum wage. And we have that California bill that wants minimum wage to go to $22 an hour. I mean, there's things everywhere that are trying to raise the wage. And I think that ChatGPT and generative AI will help with that once it's really part of the system.
Oh, minimum wage is a whole other conversation. We could have an entire other podcast about that.
We could have like 2-hour podcast about that. It's a long discussion. Yeah. But it's something that needs to be talked about. So I'm glad that we have talked about it a little bit on this podcast. As long as no ChatGPT or AI takes my job, I think I'm good with that.
Yes, that is something I actually played around with ChatGPT and asked it to write an article about Starbucks, because that's what I do a lot. And I personally find that I think that my job is safe, because first of all, it can't create new content. It's just linking to other people's content. And it also kind of writes a little bit like 13-year-old writing a book report. That's always how I describe it. Like, it's technically correct, but it's just not very nuanced writing.
It doesn't flow
To
correctly.
be fair, I suspect this is how 13-year-olds write book reports now. So.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, we didn't have this
That's
technology when any of us were growing up. Yeah. Teachers can handle the technology on their own. We have nothing to do with it. We just report on it. And hopefully don't write stories with it. All right, well, guys, we had a wonderful conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us, Joanna. It was such a treat.
Sure.
And I'm going to throw it over to myself for our interview, which is a surprise. So you'll just wait and see. Stratus Foods is the industry partner you can depend on when you're looking for the very best in fats and oils. Our team of expert researchers, developers, and innovators have helped countless businesses just like yours bring their most delicious menus to life. With products that are reliable, sustainable, and ready to meet any challenge, you can fry, bake, saute, and grill with confidence. Stratus Foods, we've got you covered. All right. Hi, Mark. Welcome to our podcast. Can you tell me a little bit about Savvy Sliders?
Well, Savvy Sliders is the hottest, most talked about brand throughout Metro Detroit, expanding all throughout the United States. We have about 35 locations currently right now throughout Metro Detroit. We've got about 37 open, which includes 2 in Columbus. We just opened our first store in Texas and San Antonio as well. So we're about almost 4 years old. We have started off, and it has just became a major hit. The quality of our food, the atmosphere, our menu, our marketing, our advertising, and people just go crazy over Savvy Sliders.
So what is Savvy Sliders exactly? What can we expect if we come into the restaurant?
So what you can expect, first of all, when you come in or drive through, is an incredible atmosphere, from being asked how you are, from when you leave saying see you tomorrow. But what people really come in for is our all fresh, never frozen Angus beef burgers, our famous hand battered chicken fingers, and our hand spun custard shakes. So of course we have dine-in available as well, online ordering, but really the atmosphere, along with the quality of our food, our menu, our value for the dollar. Our food is quite filling, and especially we're very big also in the catering arena.
So I know that you guys have grown a decent amount in spite of what's happened over the past 3 years.
Sure.
How did you do that?
So, really, the unfortunate thing, of course, COVID came. Our stores were set up, mostly a good majority of it, for fast pickup and takeout. We also had seating also available. But of course, with our drive-through locations, we were able to withstand the situation that happened. We did keep our stores opened. Our staffing was always there and always present. We never ran out of any of our food products. So we were able to really be there in a time of need and be there for our customers. And at the same sense, make sure that we're following the COVID policies. But we withstand it, and we've came out bigger and stronger than ever.
So there are some slider competition in your area. What is it like to be in this kind of growing area that is sliders?
We love it. It's great for us. We consider ourselves to be the best at what we do. And when you have our sliders, they're different and they're better. We say bigger, better, and bolder. And our new slogan now is the More to Love Foundation. It's more with the number 2 than love. And it's because we have 2 sliders in our combos. So 2 sliders are always better than 1. And competition's there, which we love, and we're grateful for it. We just feel that we're better, and we're keep doing what we do best, which is provide high quality food, extraordinary service, and keeping our customers happy, and making them feel like they're family, and seeing them tomorrow and even sometimes the same day, because they love our food.
How do you get and keep extraordinary employees? Because it's really tough in this labor market right now. What is your view on that? And do you have a high retention rate?
Mark, first of all, we do know it has been a challenge. We've been very fortunate. We've opened a store almost every 2 to 3 weeks. All of our stores are at full capacity with help. I think a lot to do with our support team. I think a lot to do with our owner operators that own the locations, that are hands-on and present versus a corporate feeling. And really, the customers and the people that work with us, the workers are happy and our customers are happy. People want to work in a happy environment. And Savvy Sliders is somewhere people enjoy. They like seeing customers that are happy and we take care of our employees and we make them part of the team. They're not just a worker. They become part of the operation, part of our growth. And there's even some times where some of the employees have had opportunities to grow within the brand and become managers and sometimes even owner operators.
That's great to hear that you guys have that kind of a pipeline available and that people are willing to do that with your brand. It's usually a good sign for the brand that people want to do that and stick around. So that's a good thing. What's it been like growing? You aren't that old of a brand.
No, we're not. We're a little over 4 years old. And really what's happened over the last few years is our brand has become recognized, not only at our store level, but where people see our brand is at different events, social events, midnight weddings. So it's not only a customer says, oh, I was at your store and I love the food. By the way, my son had a graduation party and Savvy Sliders catered it. Or we were at a wedding and saw Savvy Sliders, or we were at an event, or now our new food truck that we have also available that we attend different functions and events. So, people are seeing us everywhere, and the word of mouth, when people have our food, they tell others, and it's spreading more and more. And the Savvy Sliders name is becoming very, very well recognized, not only throughout Metro Detroit, but it's becoming very recognized throughout the United States.
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought up your Detroit locations because you've really concentrated a lot of locations in this area. So there's a lot of name recognition when it comes to Savvy Sliders.
Sure.
Is this your plan that you're doing in the other cities that you're in? Are you planning to saturate the city?
When you say saturate, we're going to saturate it in a very positive sense.
Yes.
Such as our new store that we opened about a month ago in San Antonio, Texas. It was one of our biggest grand openings that we've ever had, ever. And it was a store that nobody had our food. People were unfamiliar with the brand other than, hearing about it through the Detroit metropolitan area. It's became just unbelievably desirable and wanted by customers continuously. So we're now, of course, expanding throughout the Texas market. We're opening up our next store in Dallas in about 45 days. We're also coming to Houston. So we're going to come out throughout Texas. We believe that is a wonderful market for us, and the people are loving our food. They're loving the food for the value, and they're loving the service that we're providing. And we're just going to go everywhere and anywhere that we can where we have an owner operator that will be there present, running, owning, and operating the location.
Now, I want to move back to catering because that's something that we saw really go down in the dumps during the past 3 years. It was a really hard thing to get. But it sounds like you are catering a lot, not necessarily to office workers like the previous catering was, but it sounds like it's all these other events that are asking for catering versus having like a chef there. So how has that kind of happened?
So our catering, first of all, is a huge part of our business. We cater to hospitals, to schools, retail shopping centers. We have some very, very, very large accounts that we do catering for. We have a 24-pack box that really is a really creative look when we deliver our product. And when we deliver to the hospitals or to the schools or to the businesses and we serve our catering meals, we get continuous business thereafter because they really, really love our food. And it's different than what they're used to. It's not your traditional slider. This is bigger, better, and bolder. So people really, when they have it and they see it and they taste it, they want more of it. And we're there to provide as much as they'd like, because the catering part of our business is growing rapidly. And we're just we're going to handle our catering volume with our staffing as big as it can get. So catering is a very, very big part of the Savvy Sliders brand.
And so you talk about Savvy Sliders being a little bit bigger than traditional sliders and a little bit juicier, basically, with their ingredients. That seems like it'd be a perfect recipe for children and adults alike, for perfect size for children. Adults can have as many as they want without feeling guilty. And is that something you've seen in your customer base?
Yes, we have kids. Of course, the kids love our fingers. Parents, senior citizens. So it's a real mix of really everybody and anybody. But yeah, we're known for our combo boxes of having 2 sliders and fries. And if they'd like to upgrade to our famous custard shakes. So of course, kids, people, families, they love our custard shakes. But yeah, and also our selection. We don't only just have Angus beef sliders. We have a falafel for the vegetarian. We have a cod. We have a steakhouse. We have a selection. We have sliders of the month. We just came out with a crab cake slider. So we're always doing testings and tastings to try to come out with a slider of the month. And so it really gives people a selection, and our value, our price point is really, really a great price point for the quality of the food. You really seldomly ever see anyone leaving without being filled. So when they get our 2 sliders, fries, and a drink, or one of our shakes, they're very, very full. This is not something that you can eat 7 or 8 of our sliders, because they're gourmet, they're filling, they're all fresh, never frozen. So it's a very filling meal. And people really, they want that today. When they're paying for something, they want value and they want quality. And at Savvy Sliders, we provide all of that for that same price.
What is menu ideation like for you guys? Because it sounds like it's really fun.
It is. It's, we'll always say to people that people don't only come to Savvy Sliders because we have great food. They come for the atmosphere. It really is a fun place. And if you haven't been there yet, you really need to see us. You need to come into our lobby. You need to really understand and get that feeling of what it's like to be a Savvy Sliders customer. So we always recommend, and I always say that if you haven't had Savvy Sliders, you need to try it. And if you haven't tried it, you're missing out on it. And if there isn't one near you, there will be one near you soon.
Well, and you are on the development side. So can you tell me a little about what the future holds for Savvy Sliders?
Well, our future is, we have plans and put this plan together with support, with teams of an infrastructure in place that we hope in the next 4 years to 5 years that we would like to have 400 to 500 locations. So our growth is rapid, but being very smart. And we see Savvy Sliders throughout the metro Detroit market, but not only there, we see it all throughout the United States.
So what is it like to drop one of these into a city? What's the infrastructure that you need to get a new unit in a city?
So we look for, we're doing, we look at, like, for instance, restaurants that maybe did not succeed. We're also doing ground up locations, which our first one just opened in Oak Park, Michigan, which is open Tuesday. It was our first ground up location. So we're looking at ground up locations as well. We like to go into areas where, of course, there's lots of people. We like schools, we like colleges, we like businesses that are around. We like to be around a lot of the other competition, to be in that market with them. But we look for about a 2,000 to 2,500 square foot location. We are looking as best as we can for drive-through sites, but we do have some locations that are non-drive-through that are doing very, very well. But really our look and our real concept is about a 2,500 square foot drive-through location. And the key that we're looking for is, once again, owner operators that are from their area, that have to live in their market, and that live about 30 to 45 minutes away or less from the store, because we want that owner operator to always be available. So when you walk into a Savvy Sliders, you're always getting great, great, great service, great attention, and there's always an owner operator, someone present for a question, an issue, or anything on site. So we feel that we're doing everything in the right direction to assist with the growth of Savvy Sliders. We're also looking right now for multi-unit franchisees.
That was my next question.
Yeah, ones that are already in the industry, that understand how to operate stores, multi-unit stores. So we've been very successful with that. And now bringing those into our family is what we call it, family, not franchisee. So we're looking at the multi-units as well. Others that have other brands that are looking at something else. And we feel once they get familiar with the Savvy's brand and they experience it, try it, and kind of see the support that we provide, they'll be a Savvy Sliders franchisee.
Are you looking for all franchisees as you grow, or are you going to have some corporate units? What's going to be the mix on that?
All franchisee
Wow.
stores, all of them.
How have your franchisees gone about, creating their businesses? You talked about them being super involved.
Sure.
Do you look for certain people when you franchise? Are you looking for a specific kind of person and personality?
Yeah, we are. We're looking for people that our business is customer service oriented. Yes, we have the best food and we have the greatest food around, but we want people that are great with customers. So we definitely look at that. We have a lot of families that have came on board, husband, wives, children. We have people that came from non-food business as well, because really what's great about Savvy Sliders is that our Angus beef burgers are completely automated with a press of a button. So we don't need a chef that's running our restaurants. It's very much automated. So we're looking for that person to be multitasked and people that have management background. So of course you don't need to be in the food business if you have management background. So yeah, those are the people that we're looking for to help grow our brand. We realize to grow our brand to where we want it, we need to have that franchisee that is our support with us to help us grow. So we do everything we can to make sure the franchisee benefits the most in the process of owning a Savvy Sliders.
Now, you mentioned a little bit of automation, which is very interesting because you're a growing brand, and we typically don't see growing brands dive into automation. So I'm curious to know why you guys did that and how helpful it's been.
So when we first started Savvy Sliders, this automated clamshell machine was designed preferably just for our brand. And what it's really done is, so when you're going to a restaurant today or you're going for a burger, you'll have some people that may say, by the way, mine was rare or mine wasn't well. And what we've done is we have made sure that our burger is completely, perfectly temperature cooked in and out with a press of a button. So when it's done and it's completed, that burger is completely temperature cooked for each and every customer. So when you go to a location in Metro Detroit, or you go to a location in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that Angus beef burger quality and same taste will be at every single store that you go to.
And what kind of an expense is that for franchisees? Because I imagine it's not cheap.
No, our equipment, first of all, is not cheap. We've used the best of the best, but we realize that that's what you need to do to provide that great quality food. Our customers are coming to us not only for the atmosphere, not because our food's great, but really because of the quality of our food. They really love our chicken fingers because they're hand battered, marinated right on site. Our burgers are done all fresh, never frozen, so you can taste the quality. And that's really a big part of our business. And those are the customers that are thriving towards Savvy Sliders.
Well, and as you grow, consistency is so important. And it's great that you have this machine that is quite literally, its job is to be consistent. So that's a very helpful thing as you grow, that there's quality control over everything.
Yeah, and then also too, which I really need to brag about, is our training program. We're really, 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 we've got an incredible operational team. So when we do have that franchisee that comes on board, they go through extensive training. They see the support that we provide. That's really the big key for Savvy Sliders, is support. And I think that that's what's lacking in the industry today. We provide that support from beginning to end, because we want the franchisee to benefit as much as possible, because when they benefit, that's how we benefit. So we're in it together. And when they have that feeling and they know that we're a phone call away or we're there when they need us, that support really provides them the interest of wanting to open up more locations with us. And that's why a lot of our locations now of owner operators are looking at second, third, and fourth locations now.
Well, that positive note, which is a great sign for you, is a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, we thank you, and we hope you get a chance to come out and see us at our store level in either Michigan or Cleveland coming soon, Miami coming soon. If you're in Texas, or if you're where you're at, we may have to come to you soon and open a location near you.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your day.